Hey, 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 it's Captain Cast Iron. Welcome to the Captain Cast Iron Fight Picks podcast. This is episode 3, and today we will be reviewing Ultimate Fight Night 110, which was held on Saturday, June 11th, 2017 in Auckland, New Zealand. This podcast is sponsored by CaptainCastIronFightPicks.com. My picks are up over 300 units in 2017. That's right, 300 units. Please take a moment to visit the site at www.CaptainCastIronFightPicks.com and scroll down and to the right to see the most recent event. Please read the event from top to bottom to see event information and then the individual bets. The bets are in 5 skillet order and not in the order of occurrence. There is also a parlay section at the bottom. Bets have a link to the tweet where I announced the particular bet, and the event has a link to a web.archive.org snapshot of the website before the event occurred to provide verification of the time the bet was made. With the Captain Cast Iron Fight Picks 5 skillet system, we start with a bankroll of 300 units and bet 100 units on every single UFC event with a bet on every fight. And the podcast format is simple. We will review each fight and take a look at the two fighters, then discuss the betting strategy and any other factors that went into making the bet using the graphical event depiction at CaptainCastIronFightPicks.com as a reference. Then we will review how the fight actually played out and judge the betting strategy versus the result. This event, Ultimate Fight Night 110, was another great success. I bet 100 units on my straight bets, going 9-2, including 4-0 in my top 5 picks for a profit of 72.26 units. I bet 4 units on parlays, going 4-1, for a profit of 3.64 units. Let's get started. First off, we have at position number 12 a fight in the welterweight division between Dominic Steele and Luke Sumo. The bet was on the favorite Dominic Steele, 1 unit to win, 0.58 units. And Dominic Steele was defeated by Luke Sumo, so it resulted in a loss of 1 unit for me on this fight. My reasons for picking Dominic Steele were that, first off, he has 4 fights in the UFC compared to his opponent's 0 fights in the UFC. His debut didn't go too well. He lost by TKO punch to Zach Cummings. So he definitely displayed the fact that his chin wasn't that great. He did follow that up with a KO slam victory over Maestro Dong Young Kim. And next he fought Danny Roberts, and I actually had the fight for Dominic Steele, but he ended up losing a unanimous decision in that fight. And then he did lose again to Court McGee, a unanimous decision. So he had 4 fights in the UFC. Arguably, he could be 2-2, and his opponent had 0 fights. So that factor was a big one in my decision to favor Dominic Steele. His opponent. So that was the main reason. In that situation, you have a debuting fighter versus a veteran. In this case, you could argue that since Dominic Steele had lost 3 out of 4, and he was fighting an opponent that had a home field advantage, that the UFC was kind of looking to see him lose and then possibly cut him. His wrestling is pretty darn good, and I was impressed in his fight. In one of the smaller promotions against Chuck O'Neal, where he won the championship of that organization, and I thought he was okay. His opponent Luke Sumo is a striker with a lot of knockouts, and I thought that he was at home, and this event being held in Auckland, New Zealand, and Sumo being from there, that is somewhat of an advantage for Luke Sumo. But to me, in my book, the UFC experience advantage is a big one, and that's where you should always start when you have a fight between a veteran and a UFC veteran and someone making their debut. Again, Luke Sumo is a competent striker and is young and is strong, and as it turned out, he was able to connect with a few punches here and there, staggering Dominic Steele several times in the fight, and just basically winning a stand-up exchange. Dominic Steele didn't really shoot for that many takedowns, and was content to fight on the feet until he actually did attempt some takedowns later in the fight after it was a little bit too late. So, not too much on this one. Dominic Steele has shown a characteristic of being chinny, and in this fight I think that really made the difference, because Luke Sumo hit him a couple times and staggered him, and I think that carries great weight with the judges, and so he ended up losing a unanimous decision. And so my bet at position number 12 on the favorite Dominic Steele, 1 unit to win 0.58 units, was a loss and resulted in a loss of 1 unit for me. Next up at position 11, we have a fight in the middleweight division. Derek Brunson versus Daniel Kelly. The favorite, Derek Brunson, came in at minus 250, and the comeback on Daniel Kelly, plus 200. I did place a 1 unit bet on the favorite, Derek Brunson, to win 0.40 units. Derek Brunson did win, so the result of this fight for me was a profit of 0.40 units. Taking a look at the competitors in this fight, Derek Brunson is an excellent athlete. He's 33 years old and in the prime of his career. He has excellent wrestling, he has excellent power, and he is very dynamic. His opponent, Daniel Kelly, is 39 years old. He's a 4-time Olympic judoka representing Australia, and he's a very good fighter as well. He's slow of foot, but he has great ability to outlast his opponents, and most of his victories come from doing just that and then breaking his opponent's will. So my reasons for picking Derek Brunson in this fight were basically, I saw he had 3 clear paths to victory. The first one would be to come out and get an early knockout over Daniel Kelly. Second one would be to wrestle Daniel Kelly, who of course is an Olympic judoka, but Derek Brunson's takedowns are very good, and Daniel Kelly's takedown defense, despite against wrestling, despite being an Olympic judoka, is not that great. And third, Derek Brunson could just stay on the feet and outbox the slower Daniel Kelly for 3 rounds and win a decision that way. So the way the fight played out was sort of a combination of the two. He did come out in the first round, but he did not go crazy. He did not run into Daniel Kelly with his chin up and try to just knock him out immediately. But he did take his time. He danced around, he flicked a few jabs out, and then Daniel Kelly threw a punch and was a little bit out of position, and Derek Brunson clocked him with the right hand. Daniel Kelly fell in a heap, and Brunson finished off with a couple of ground and pound strikes, and the referee called the fight. So it did play out similar to how I thought, but sort of more a combination of the first two than what I thought he would do, which is good. Shows that he learned from his last 2 fights, and he was able to put together an intelligent game plan to work with his strengths and against the weaknesses of his opponent. So position number 11, I bet on the favorite Derek Brunson, 1 unit to win 0.40 units. Did in fact result in a profit of 0.40 units for me.